Good evening, everybody. Welcome to IBECC. A very warm welcome to you. We're thrilled that you've decided to join us this year. My name is Jim Arnold. I have been with IBECC for 16 years now, believe it or not. And probably some of you were about this tall when we started with IBECC. That's been a wonderful experience. We're glad you decided to take part this year, and hope that you'll find it to be as valuable as we have when we are judging. A lot of our judges have also been with us for a number of years as well. What I'd like to do is we'll start off by judges will introduce themselves to you. And then after that, we're going to ask you to introduce yourselves to us. And I will have a little paragraph to read to you, and then we'll get started. Does that work for you? Okay, you have met me. Now, Nancy, how about you go next?
Hi, I'm Nancy Gregory. I am a certified fraud examiner and certified in compliance and ethics. I spent 16 years building fraud cases for attorneys and other fiduciaries, and then pivoted over into healthcare.
Thank you. Tim?
Hi, I'm Tim Mazer. I'm on the board of directors of IBECC. I've worked in business ethics and compliance for 36 years at corporations and nonprofits, and I've taught business ethics to MBA candidates at 8 universities over the past 33 years. And I currently am soon beginning a new job working in business ethics at the Broad Institute of MIT and Harvard here in Cambridge.
Thank you. Maria?
Hi, everyone. My name is Maria Sonnen. So first off, I'm not a regular judge. I'm an AI judge. I'm not AI myself. I'm a real human being. But I am sitting in on all of the AI sessions because this year we're doing a special a contest between like just the AI focus, and I believe there's a prize for the best AI session. So that's who I am for IBECC in real life. I am in ethics and compliance. I work at BAE Systems, which is a very, very large multinational aerospace and defense company. So if any of you came over in an airplane, there is a BAE Systems product on that airplane, whether it's a Boeing or an Airbus airplane. So that is who I am. Happy to be here. Do we have an online?
We have one online. I'm not sure if he can speak to us or not. If you can speak to us. At this point, they're still working on it. That is why Liam stepped up. But I know that he can at least, at the very minimum, he can hear you. So he'll be able to see you before too long. So
Hi, this is Carl Oliver.
Hi, Carl. Tell us a little about yourself, Carl.
Well, I'm retired from the ethics office at Northrop Grumman Corporation. And I'm the author of Business Ethics, The Path to Certainty. And I've been with IBECC for a couple of decades. So I'm glad to be here, and I really enjoy the presentations from this university in particular every year. Thank you.
The bar is high. He said he's enjoyed presentations from your organization. Wonderful. Introduce yourselves if you would, please.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Julian, and I'm a junior in accounting and philosophy.
Hey, everyone. My name is Vijay. I'm a senior studying entrepreneurship and information systems.
Hi, my name is Minji. I'm a senior studying marketing and information systems.
Greetings. My name is Alex. I'm a senior studying entrepreneurship and information systems.
Hi, my name is Nina, and I'm a senior studying finance and political science.
Okay, plenty of seniors here. I see. Okay. What I'm going to do to start out is I'm going to read you a paragraph, and you have seen this paragraph before. It is all over our website. It's been furnished to everybody, but we like to read it before every session so everybody starts out on a level playing field. In this part of the competition, you are taking on a fictional business identity and assigning a fictional business identity to the judges, which I understand is we are the board and officers of Walt Disney Company. Please make sure everyone knows who you are and who they are before you begin. You will have 25 minutes plus a 5-minute cushion to describe the legal, financial, and ethical dimensions of the problem and to recommend a solution that passes muster on all 3 counts. During this time, we will not be interrupting you. When you are finished, the judges will ask you questions for about 20 minutes. During that 20 minutes, we are going to stay in character. We will be board of directors and officers of Walt Disney Company, and you should be staying in your role as well. After the Q and A, we will take off those hats and we will give you feedback outside of the role playing. We'll be back to being ourselves and we'll have some feedback for you. You can choose to use some of that feedback in your creating your 10-minute presentation for tomorrow, but there's no expectation that you do so. It's only for your benefit if you'd like to. Some important things to keep in mind. The ethical aspects of your analysis are the most important part. However, these should be described in a simple, practical, common sense fashion. Using technical, philosophical terminology or basing your argument on religious or theological grounds will be considered a serious mistake and a serious weakness. Similarly, any member of the team reading his or her part will also be considered having made a major mistake, although you may use notes. During this presentation, every member of the team must have some sort of speaking role. Do you have any questions about that before we get started?
I actually do have one based off of the introduction we just gave. We have an introduction slide at the beginning. Would you like us to just breeze by through?
You go ahead with whatever you had originally planned. If you originally planned to do that, you're welcome to do it again. We like you so much, we're happy to meet you twice.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you very much.
Okay, welcome to IBECC once again, and you can start when you're ready.
Beyond the realm of fairy tales lies a world of endless possibilities for the Walt Disney Company. However, with the recent rise of rapidly integrating technology threatening to control people and the jobs that feed into the magic that your company creates, the Walt Disney Company exists at a crossroads. Lights, camera, action. Let's talk about it. So we are a consulting team representing on behalf of Lincoln and Company Consulting. My name is Alex Wong, currently majoring in entrepreneurship and information systems.
My name is Vijay Krishnan. I'm majoring in entrepreneurship and information systems as well. I'm a consultant with Lincoln.
Hi, my name is Julian Janasmo, and I'm majoring in accounting and philosophy.
Hi, my name is Minji, and I'm majoring in marketing and information systems.
And hi, my name is Nina. I'm majoring in finance and political science.
So today, in today's presentation, we're going to talk about the problem, go a little bit into the overview and the background from which it came from. We're going to deeply analyze the problem, considering the ethical, financial, and legal considerations of the problem. We will then present our solution and strategy of implementation. We'll talk about some risk mitigation with said solution, and we'll conclude our presentation and be open up to questions from the board. So, regarding the problem in which we are attempting to solve today, on the next slide, you will see our problem. How can the entertainment industry ethically balance between the expressive freedoms of artists' voices as well as the cost-effective innovations of AI? Why are we talking about this problem? Well, it stems from two main topics that arose heavily in the media last year and throughout the summer of 2023. First, starting off with a statement made by your CEO, Bob Iger, who said, and verbatim as you will see on the next slide, we're already starting to use AI to create some efficiencies and ultimately to better serve consumers. But it's also clear that AI is going to be highly disruptive and it could be extremely difficult to manage. Again, that extremely difficult to manage part is precisely where we're targeting our problem, which we're talking about on the next slide being what we're calling the screenwriters problem. In March of 2023, the Screenwriters Guild of America, the WGA, began negotiations with many large media corporations within the realm of Hollywood, such as the Walt Disney Company, and arguing for two things. One, higher wages for screenwriters, and two, job security within the space of AI integration. Despite large research showcasing that AI can improve efficiencies across many different industries, at the end of the day, there are still some industries where where they cannot solely thrive on the basis of AI. There still needs to be that human element integrated. And from that research, the Walt Disney Company exists within one of those industries, that being the entertainment industry. This lead then into May 2023, when WGA officially called on strike, which lasted throughout the entire summer, hinging on these two issues, since they are widely contested, including the artificial intelligence issue, since that was, let's say, the trending topic of 2023, ultimately culminating in September 2023, with the WGA reaching a temporary tentative agreement with studios where AI would still continue to be experimented with in their global media blockbusters, but screenwriters would still maintain their jobs today. But for now, what happens though once that tentative agreement comes to a halt and the issue stems to a conflict again. What will happen to the future of screenwriters in the need for them to have to present that human element that would discredit the integrity if being substituted with AI with these pieces of media magic essentially coming from the Walt Disney Company. And in the end, what will the Walt Disney Company do next? Going into the next slide, of course, the source of this problem stems from this rise of AI. This rising trend of AI usage across many different industries for two main reasons. To one, improve efficiency, and two, reduce costs. For the purposes of this presentation, we're going to be focusing on large language models, or LLMs, which are AI deep machine learning models that are specifically pre-trained based on a wide set of data. This can include photos, videos, graphic content, screenplays, et cetera, et cetera. This, of course, goes in place with screenwriters because the screenplays in which they write and adapt would inevitably be replaced with AI, which threatens not only the screenwriter's financial stability, but also threatens the very fact that this entertainment industry thrives on the humanistic nature, thrives on that freedom of expression, thrives on humans coming from an escape from their reality to enjoy these pieces of work made by fellow peers within the industry. Replacing that with AI poses a strong ethical dilemma of sacrificing that human integrity within the industry with the company to then replace it with a generic AI in which all stakeholders could react potentially negatively, can potentially react negatively on. This then, however, comes to us with a solution we seek to propose to you today, which on the next slide you will see. We hope throughout the rest of this presentation hopes to uphold the delicate balance between screenwriters and the company's AI plans through accepting AI as a core strategy, creating guidelines for AI usage, and transforming strategy and operations so as to use AI more as a resource to every single stakeholder involved, rather than as a substitution for screenwriters maintaining their jobs, maintaining their security within the industry. Before we go deeper into the problem, on the following over the course of the following slides, a recap of the identification of the stakeholders should be considered. Of course, there's the key stakeholder of you guys, the Walt Disney Company. Since at the end of the day, you'll be making those executive decisions to drive home the idea of what will the future be for the balance between AI and screenwriters. And of course, they are also the key stakeholders of screenwriters since they are the sole main protagonists, let's call it, of the situation in question, since their jobs, their lives, their artistic expressions are on the line, potentially being substituted with AI. But there are also the key stakeholders of customers as well, since at the end of the day, no matter, regardless of the screenplays that the screenwriters write for Disney and the content that is then released by Disney Public, the customers are the ones who will be receiving that content and responding back in a way that could potentially affect Disney's bottom line, potentially affect Disney's PR, affect that relationship moving forward. For over a century, you guys have been creating Disney movie, TV, media magic for these customers. How that will impact moving forward will greatly determine based upon the effects of how you respond to the problem, the potential effects of our solution, and how that is to be implemented over the course of the next several months, years, and so forth. But for ethical considerations of our problem, I turn it over to Drew.
Thank you, Alex. All right, so now that we're familiar with all of our important stakeholders, let's take a look at what the ethical considerations are for them. So we start off with Disney, obviously, the most important stakeholder, and we'll talk a little bit about your mission. So Disney's mission is all about unparalleled storytelling, creative minds, and innovative technology. Now we'll look at the three different hypotheticals: the total integration of LLM, the complete disbandment of LLM, and a hybrid integration using both screenwriters and AI. So we can see with the complete integration, this is in direct contrast to their unparalleled storytelling and their creative minds, as well as the implementation of no AI that prohibits their innovative technology. So it seems intuitively that the implementation of both screenwriters and AI is the most ethically sound for Disney in this situation. Now let's look at screenwriters. First off, with the complete disbandment or complete integration of AI, we'll see that there will be limited human expression, and screenwriters won't be able to express themselves in the way that they have loved to do so their whole lives. This will also mean job security issues and whatnot. Now, on the other hand, if we were to completely ban the use of AI, we would see a similar problem, although it would take a different manner. Initially, screenwriters would be very happy with this decision, job security, more money possibly. But what would happen is that competitors might use AI. And screenwriting is a delicate process. It takes a long time. There are already very tight deadlines. If competitors are able to work on their output speed and Disney isn't, then what happens is the deadlines decrease, and now screenwriters now have to create poor quality content because they aren't given the correct time. And in the end, they're stressed and unhappy as well. So regardless of the situation, whether or not they use full AI or no AI, screenwriters are unhappy as well as unable to express themselves in a creative manner. We see that the integration of both, they're able to maintain their human creativity as well as a reasonable output speed. And lastly, customers. An important aspect is that if you use AI, it has a nuanced ability to create reasonable scripts. There could be misappropriation of cultural content. It could be talking about sensitive topics in a very crude manner, and it could lead to misinformation in documentaries and other educational-based topics. We can't have that for customers, and customers won't be happy and will stop using Disney as a matter of fact. So when we see the partial integration, we see great content diversity. Customers are able to see more content, more niche content that AI can't create because of that initial problem. And we'll still see a high quality and amount of content because AI is able to output that high amount of content while screenwriters are able to focus on the diversity and elements of those topics. Next, I'll talk about the financial considerations. So again, we'll break it down into the three scenarios of total integration, no integration, and a hybrid. With total integration, we might see labor costs reduce for Disney, but it could be a PR disaster. If consumers find out that their content that they're watching is made by robots, perhaps there's boycotts, perhaps there's issues, and sure, you might cut costs, but your entire revenue will shrink much more than your costs will decrease. So not a financially sound choice for them or for you. If you were to use no AI, again, your labor costs would increase and you would have good content, but perhaps customers wouldn't want to wait so long for each product. And you might see a decrease in revenue on that front too. Lastly, the integration of both, you'll see a reduction in labor costs and still the high quality content that Disney promotes, and you wouldn't have a PR issue because you still have screenwriters creating still interesting, unique content. Same thing for screenwriters. If you forbid the use of it, that's great, but we'll have that problem of financial issues where it will reduce the job market for them if you integrate AI completely. If you don't integrate AI, then stress and time concerns lead to poor performance and possibly firing of screenwriters. Again, the implementation of both leaves screenwriters in a safe and secure financial position while still being able to express themselves creatively. And lastly, customers aren't particularly impacted by the middleman integration of both screenwriters and AI. It has no impacting on their pricing, and your customers are already currently happy, so why bother changing that? With all that in mind, I'll pass over to Minji, who will talk about our legal considerations.
Thank you, Julian. So there are three major legal considerations that surround this issue. The first is copyright law. So currently, copyright law does not protect fully AI generated works. Additionally, any use of AI in a creative work must be disclosed. And according to Section 106 of copyright law, copyright owners have exclusive rights to certain acts, such as reproduction and distribution. And this is often the section of copyright law that comes into conflict with AI use. For example, when protected works are used to train AI, this could be considered copyright infringement. Next, there is the WGA agreement that was discussed earlier, that came to an agreement in 2023 with major Hollywood studios, including Disney. So according to this agreement, AI cannot write or rewrite literary material, and AI generated material cannot be used to undermine writers' credit or reduce compensation. Additionally, according to this agreement, writers cannot be forced to use AI, although they can choose to use it if company policy allows. And lastly, there is ongoing litigation surrounding this issue of the use of AI. Creators have sued companies such as OpenAI and GitHub, arguing that the use of protected works to train AI constitutes copyright infringement. Additionally, currently works that have some involvement of AI but have mostly been created by humans can be protected by copyright. However, there is no clear decision made on how much AI involvement would make the work primarily created by AI as opposed to primarily created by human. So this lack of a clear distinction can pose a risk to companies who choose to use AI, who may evaluate the extent of AI involvement to be different from what the Copyright Office evaluates it. So next, I will pass it off to Vijay to discuss our solution.
Thank you, Minji. So now that we've considered some of the main problems regarding AI use, especially in regards to screenwriters, let's talk about our solution, which we call the ACT framework. This stands for Accept, Create, and Transform Processes within Disney. Moving a little bit further into what that means, we start off by accepting AI as a core process and a core piece of Disney strategy and controlling the narrative around how it's used. We understand right now that all of our stakeholders, from our shareholders to our customers to our screenwriters, think that AI will at some point be used because of the high reliance of our activities on, frankly, language. Using these models and using this framework, we can start off by controlling the narrative and really showing that we plan to use this in an ethical and fair way. Then we go on to the create stage. In the create stage, we focus first by using a bottom-up strategy to understand how we can really implement AI in an effective way, and then using those to understand key trends and how we can generalize that across the board. Which brings us to the transform stage. And in the transform stage, we take what we've learned in the create stage and use those guidelines across the organization, having a more top-down impact, make sure that we are using AI in the most efficient, yet still ethical and important ways. That all being said, let's jump a little bit further to talk a little bit more about what accept is. The first two parts of accept really mean coming out and being forward about AI being core to our strategy. But more specifically, identifying key goals and how we're going to use this in a more effective way. We want to make sure that people don't just understand that we want to use AI to reduce costs and do all the same more or businessy things of increasing profitability. Rather, we want to use AI in a way that can be fair to our stakeholders. As an organization, we care about the quality and the type of content that we produce for people. We care that we're creative, we're producing different things. We care about our screenwriters and their financial and job security, but we also care about them as people and their ideas. We also care about our customers, the fact that we are creating high quality, high production value things that they care about and that they love. From there, we go on to training and learning processes. What we really want to do is make sure people understand, one, how do we use AI? AI use, while simple in theory, is actually a little bit more complicated. So how do you prompt something to be the best in a certain scenario you're looking for? You create personas that make the most sense. But perhaps even more importantly, how do you make sure you use AI that is not psychologically limiting yourself and your own creativity? We also want to address some of the legal and ethical issues of this. More specifically, making sure that we're not using AI for actually writing or editing scripts directly. Rather, we're using it to be more specific on how we can be more creative and how we can be more productive. Some of these ideation tasks are some of the actual most time-consuming tasks as we found. Going on from there, we'll talk about these different. We'll go into the create stage. Create stage talks first about starting a bottom-up effort to really understand how we can best use AI. Why do we say bottom-up rather than having top-down controls? Well, think about movie writing in the first place. Think about movies such as Barbie and Oppenheimer. Barbie is a movie that centers around Barbie Land and Barbie herself, in which there is a fictional world where Barbie and the other versions of Barbie live in peaceful harmony with each other. Oppenheimer, on the other hand, tries to be extraordinarily realistic, to the point where rather than using a much cheaper and much, frankly, more convincing computer-generated graphics to show a massive nuclear blast, the director instead insisted on using thousands of tons of explosives to recreate the same. As you can imagine, these two movies had extraordinarily different visions, and that would logically transform into the actual screenwriter themselves being different, with different passions, experiences, values, while also having different teams and different ways of working, so that these movies could come out as excellent in their own ways. To have a bottom-up effort would mean to allow them to use it in the ways that they feel best, while also staying true to our WGA agreements to allow employees to use AI as they see fit. From these, we can start to understand how different teams are using them in more we can say generic ways, how we can see consistencies between teams, and how maybe we want to integrate them across the organization. But how do you know what to implement across the organization? We recommend using a risk impact matrix. This essentially means that if something is a high risk yet low impact, you probably don't want to integrate it throughout the entire organization. You might even consider banning. Whereas if something is a very low risk but has shown a very high impact on our production, well, that's probably something that we can implement without needing too much oversight. However, if something is somewhere in between, maybe not as much impact, maybe not as much risk, or maybe more risk, we might decide to go with a high risk strategy, where we accept it in some cases, but we need approval, we need oversight, or we need to review the material a lot more and have much more scrutiny. This is especially important when we're talking about things that might have cultural sensitivity. Once we found out what guidelines we want to include throughout the organization, we go on to the transform stage. From here, we go from a bottom up to a little bit more top down, where we allow teams or provide teams guidelines on how specifically they can use AI to do their own work. We specifically recommend going towards new teams first. And the reason for this is simply because we wouldn't want to go onto movies and our existing teams, things that might have been going on for 3, 4, 5, sometimes 8 or 9 years, and tell them how to change their entire processes. But we'd rather focus on new teams that might be able to change their processes much more quickly and much more fluidly without disrupting that much of their own processes. From there, once we've integrated these into our new processes, we also want to make sure we're learning and iterating in an effective way. So we're not just throwing these guidelines at people, but we're also continuously allowing them to experiment and iterate and decide when to change things based on their own experiences, but also based on the changing legal environments, as AI is still being really litigated throughout the United States. That brings us to the ethical side of things. Of our 3 main stakeholders, we talked first about you, the Walt Disney Corporation. And one core part of Disney is making sure that we are creative, that we create good content. And we believe that this framework best fits that goal. Because although we're using AI that might be more standardized and that might reduce creativity, we're using it in a way where there's always a human actor present. And we're focusing on making sure that that human actor is in control. So rather than being something that hinders productivity and creativity, we hope that it's something that actually brings more ideas and helps to create more creative and more interesting pieces overall. That brings me to screenwriters. One of the key things about screenwriters is that they're worried about their job and financial security. By making sure that they are in control themselves of the production and how AI is used, and also making sure that we're clear on our own goals and clear on how we want to use this in other ways, can make sure that they actually are able to do the same work that they were able to do more productively, but maybe be on more projects and frankly, be a little less stressed, as the job of screenwriting right now can be extraordinarily stressful. So in that sense, we hope to maintain their job and status, but we also hope to value them as people. We hope to show that we care about what their opinions, and we do this by making sure that their opinions are valid throughout the use of it. Finally, we go to customers. And from the customer standpoint, we only see the benefits. Financially, they may be relatively similar, but otherwise, they may see an increase in quality. They may see our own films being able to surpass our own competitors. And frankly, we'll be able to give them higher quality and better produced content in a shorter period of time. Overall, theoretically, it should help them out. With that, I'll pass it on to Minji to talk a little bit more about how our solution addresses the issues.
Thank you, Vijay. So assessing the ACT framework from a legal perspective shows that this framework aligns well with the 3 legal considerations outlined earlier. So again, referencing the accept stage of the ACT framework. This stage will produce proper guidelines that will allow AI to be used, but limited, so that it will not ever constitute copyright infringement and get Disney into legal trouble. Additionally, these guidelines will help screenwriters to know how to properly document the use of AI in order to avoid issues of proper disclosure. Additionally, the accept stage of the ACT framework will also help to help Disney to maintain compliance with the WGA agreement by supporting writers in their use of AI. So specifically not forcing them to ever use AI, but also outlining specifically the ways in which they can feel free to use AI. Additionally, these guidelines will support writers in making sure that they are not, their credit or their compensation is not undermined because of the use of AI. And lastly, the transform stage of the ACT framework will make sure that Disney stays in compliance with any new legal regulations that come up in the future. As mentioned earlier, there are different areas of AI there are different lawsuits surrounding the use of AI that still have not been decided upon. And so when these things do get decided, if it does change the way that Disney can use AI in the future, this transform stage of the ACT framework will make sure that Disney is updated on these changes and monitor their use of AI continually to make sure that they are never committing copyright infringement. And now I'll pass it off to Julia to discuss the financial implications of our solution.
Thank you, Minji. So I'll talk about a hypothetical situation in which the productivity of AI greatly increases the financial gain for Disney. So on the left, you can see the savings and the revenue growth. On the left, not too high, $3.5 million. That's still a lot. This is under the assumption that we could use AI to reduce the amount of spending that we do on polishes and revisions. According to the WGA, the minimum spending per polish plus revision is about $68,000. We can reasonably estimate that there's about 5 revisions for any film with a budget greater than $5 million. If we can break that down to 3 as opposed to 5, Disney can earn about $3.5 million in savings. Now, that's a nice amount, but it's the growth from the productivity that really surpasses and makes Disney's profit grow. So in the past year of 2023, we can see in North America, film revenue is around $1 billion. That's a lot of money. But if we were able to make it more efficient due to AI, perhaps about 20% growth, we could see screenwriters creating more content due to the AI and more success because of it. We can see that the actual growth because of that would be around $195 million. Combining those, you see about $200 million in gain for Disney just for implementing this AI integration with their current system. Now, I'll also talk about an important other key stakeholder, the actual screenwriters. There's important savings for them too, because intuitively you might think they're going to lose out on this, but not necessarily. The important consideration is that screenwriters have to do their own revisions. Now, that is called coverage. They'll reach out to other screenwriters, executives, and whatnot to ask them to read over their services and their scripts to make sure that it is of high quality. That costs around $200 each time. If we were to assume about 25% of all screenwriters were to stop using coverage costs or reduce their coverage costs and focus on the implementation of AI, you can see that they would save about $40 million in total, making not only a beneficial net gain for Disney, but also for the crucial stakeholder of screenwriters. With that all in mind, I'll turn it over to Nina, who will talk about our implementation.
Thank you, Julian. So for implementation timeline for our ACT framework, we have 3 phases. So the first phase, which we estimate will take around 6 months, is all about educating and initially rolling out the first phase, which is assessment and piloting. So this is talking to the employees, talking to the customers, letting them know the transition that we're planning to make, let them know that it's still in line with Disney's core organizational objectives. And then the second phase, which we estimate taking around 1 to 2 years, is guideline creation, and also equipping the teams with the knowledge and skills they need to effectively use AI. This will be done by getting different teams from different diverse workforces and bring them together so they understand how they can use AI effectively in their own work stream. And then our third phase, which is transform operations and continuous improvement, which we estimate to take around 3 to 5 years and also possibly longer, but it's just based on how AI is used and implemented in the entertainment industry, will be relying on employee feedback. So we continuously improve the AI implementation of the ACT framework. And so we are continually positioning Disney to lead in this new digital age. And next, moving forward, we want to position Disney as an industry leader continually. They are an industry leader because of the technological advancements they've already implemented, and AI is another way to enhance their technological advancements. So we have 3 main focuses. The first focus is the immediate solution. So this is educating key stakeholders on the AI solution and implementation strategy and using it to the most effective of its ability. And also the long-term plan, how to ensure Disney's long-term success in the industry. And this really focuses on the successful implementation of AI through Disney's subsidiaries and their diverse work streams and different workflows to bring them together in order to create value across all Disney industries. And then also maintain industry leadership. Disney is a leader in the entertainment industry, and we're navigating a space where we want to maintain this leadership position, and we will continue to be the tech innovator by using the technological advances we already had and the ones that we want to use with AI and moving forward with this mindset in order to remain on top in the entertainment industry. And next, we have risk mitigations. Disney has maintained at the forefront of the industry, and we are pretty confident in our solution for you. But it is important to be aware of the risks and how to mitigate them moving forward. So our first risk is stunting long-term innovation. It is important that while we want to maintain screenwriters' freedom of expression, it's important to use AI to enhance rather than hinder our growth, and to also see how other companies across the entertainment industry are using AI to grow. And we don't want to strike this balance. We want to maintain screenwriters' freedom and also maintaining their financial flexibility as well, by also growing our innovation. And so striking this balance will be very important moving forward. And also high employee turnover rates. The dedication and the talent of Disney employees are the engine behind the Disney machine that drives the Disney magic. And it's important to prioritize their wants and needs. So we want to take their feedback and really use that every phase of the strategy, and make sure that whatever they have to say that Walt Disney is listening to them, and we can kind of adjust our implementation timeline based on employee feedback. And this will maintain employee happiness and ultimately reduce employee turnover rates. And then lastly, legal complications. As Minji mentioned, the legal landscape is forever evolving around AIs, and there are a lot of laws that have yet to come out. So in order to mitigate this risk, we want to continually monitor the legal landscape and use it to promote a culture of innovation and adaptability as well, to safeguard Disney's financial space, but then also their innovative space as well. And passing on to BJ to wrap this up.
So going into our conclusion, let's recap some of the things that we talked about, because we know we've covered a lot. Going into some of our ethical considerations, we really want to talk about our stakeholders here. Disney, as yourself, would really care about the quality of the work that you're doing, the fact that it's creative, and the fact that it matters to the customers that you sell it to. Screenwriters really care about their own financial and job security, as well as the fact that, frankly, they want to be treated like humans and their ideas as effective and creative. Finally, we have customers. They themselves care about the highest quality productions at the lowest possible cost. When it comes to our solution, we talk about the ACT framework. That's accept, create, transform. In the accept stage, we start by accepting AI as core to our own strategy and controlling the narrative around how it's used. Then we go into the create stage, where we give the screenwriters the power themselves to understand how they can implement AI effectively, be more productive, and to align with the values of Disney as well as their own values and own. Finally, we go on to the transform stage, where we take the understandings and the learnings from the create stage and really apply to the overall organization. We can continuously build our own guidelines based on external legal implications, as well as internal learnings on how AI has been used and how to use more. This comes out to our outcomes, where ethically speaking, we're able to meet Disney's own objectives. We're able to allow screenwriters their financial and job security, as well as treating them as humans. And we're able to treat customers with better and more effective movies on a shorter time. That brings us to the financial considerations. For Disney itself, we'll see almost $200 million in financial benefits. For our screenwriters, we'll see themselves tens of millions of dollars in savings if only a portion of them utilize AI. And where legally speaking, we're able to keep up with our own. And our customers will be able to have a similar quality as it. Finally, legally, we go into our ability to really adapt to these different regulations that come up. And with the ACT framework, we really focus on how we transform and translate things to make sure that we're continuously staying on top of the regulations. Thank you for listening to our presentation. We'd like to open up to questions.
Okay. Okay, thank you, team. I'd like to start out with one question here. Again, we are keeping our board member hats on here at this point. First question, being as specific and concise as possible, what makes this issue an ethical issue?
This makes this, this makes this an ethical issue, not only for the fact that in replacing screenwriters with AI, you're threatening their financial job security, but also with the fact that at the end of the day, with this industry being solely hell-bent on that humanistic nature, replacement would sacrifice the integrity that the company and the offerings from the industry bring to customers. In fact, every single stakeholder, extremely negative light, surpassing all that what made the company what it is today, and foregoing essentially the magic that Disney brings to the general public.
Yeah, I also could add that there are serious societal implications as well. Just looking at the decision to throw away AI is not something that Disney can do either. It can't just pretend it isn't there because things get more expensive, labor gets more expensive. And if Disney only creates high quality content, but it's completely inaccessible except for a very few select people, then the point of the human creativity dies in essence. It should be accessible, and that's an important part of Disney as well. So we need to find this reasonable balance between the two.
Otherwise, it's being unethical if you don't do that.
Yes.
Board member Nancy, would you please be next?
Sure. So my concerns around AI are always about where the inputs come from and the biases that are introduced using AI that could then be reflected in the product that Disney produces. And might somehow really negatively affect the magic for which Disney has been known for years. So I'm just wondering, what thought has been given to make sure that your inputs are covering broad ranges of demographics, including age and race and ethnicity and, different value systems such that, your product doesn't change.
Would you like to talk about?
For sure. So when we look at the AI issue, especially for Disney, we decided to focus specifically on large language models. And one of the things we learned really quickly was that for Disney itself to create its own large language model that would, as you say, kind of come from a very diverse background of ages and ethnicities and groups of people, is a little bit out of the wheelhouse simply because of how complex these models can get. That being said, we do think that our strategy really focuses mostly on human elements. The key things that I wanted to say and that I brought up in the strategy as well was that fact that nothing really from the AI goes directly onto the script itself. And the reason that's important is simply because, as you mentioned, AI itself can hallucinate. It has a lot of biases, has a lot of issues that can come up. And by integrating a human element before adding it to any script, we hope that there is already that kind of inbuilt mitigation in the fact that a human is looking over it, and that in many cases, multiple humans are looking over the outputs that they might have.
Yes.
Sure.
Okay. Are you unionized? Is there a union here of screenwriters that, is gonna have to be wrapped into this process?
So that would be the Writers Guild of America.
Okay,
That's
so
not
it is
necessarily
unionized.
Yeah, it's not necessarily under Disney itself because almost all screenwriters are independent contractors, but it is.
Okay, so when you say you want to create guidelines under which AI will be utilized, are those guidelines, how are they applicable to the larger union that is really not a Disney union, but it's across the entire United States? And then also, how does that affect? I'm assuming that Disney distributes its products outside the United States as well, and what kind of implications there are going to be there.
Yeah, sure. So I think like when it comes to the guidelines, even though the writers are independent contracts, they still have to comply with the company's policy. So if they do choose to sell their script to a company, they would still have to comply by the company's policy surrounding AI. And so even though these guidelines wouldn't necessarily be implemented by the entire Writers Guild of America, writers that choose to submit their works to Disney will have to comply with the guidelines that Disney creates around the use of AI.
And that would apply to both ex-US and domestically. Outside the US and domestically. Or were you just considering this from a domestic standpoint?
We're mostly considering this from a domestic standpoint, and also I should mention that it's true that the financial considerations we have were all US based. Yeah.
And then a question on enforcement, whose responsibility is it going to be to try to enforce these guidelines? When, people go off the reservation, whether it be the corporation or it be the screenwriters.
I believe it will be up to, if I could clarify the question, are we talking about to uphold the responsibility of the solution and uphold the responsibility of saying something?
Well, yes, the guidelines that will ultimately be
all
drafted.
Those would fall into consideration, most likely you guys, the company, obviously every single person has a sole responsibility to give, since it is a collective effort. We are dealing with you outside of artificial intelligence, we are dealing with you in this case. Every single person, every single party has a responsibility to give. But at the end of the day, the company itself, you guys are dictating the terms, dictating what you guys wish for these independent contractors to provide, these screenwriters to provide. And when it comes to artificial intelligence, you are in control as what your CEO stated with, we are experimenting, we are trying to find ways to manage it. It's gonna be a rough, rocky road along the way, but on that road, always sparing out sort of forgiveness, but still making sure AI is still used, but held responsibly in the hands of both company people as well as screenwriters, and making sure, hey, we want you to utilize some of our ideas in place, and we would like you to meet these sort of contractual agreements in your argument, but we are completely open to your input, and we would love your feedback. And again, stewarding all that conversation, stewarding all that dialogue is essentially the responsibility of the people giving that job, giving that dictating out those terms, so the company would be, but making sure that is a level playing field for every single person involved would probably be the highest part of the responsibility in what you guys are on board for.
One more.
Who owns the burden to reveal when AI has contributed to some part of the script?
Sorry, could you repeat that again?
Who owns the burden of revealing that AI has contributed in part to a script?
Yeah, I could touch on to that. And also touching to the previous points, just as much AI writing software is out there, there's also just as much AI writing detection software out there. So when we talk about the internal controls that are necessary to determine whether or not people are using AI and who's going to report this kind of information, what's nice about it is that in essence, it already has its own self-reporting mechanism built into it. So obviously, when the script is submitted, it goes through a series of people, just for example, with coverage, but that would be happening internally. One of those processes that they could add to that would be the AI detection software. And so the normal people and executives who go through normal scripts, make sure that it's okay. It would be the same responsibility upon them to determine that it was within the realms of actual human creativity and not AI solely used.
Yes, okay. Thank you. Carl, are you there? Can we get a question from you?
I'm interested in how our company needs to reorganize to handle this AI challenge. How does a big company create policy? What does that look like? It looks to me like you've got some feedback loops in here, but how much of an effort is this going to be, and how much is this going to cost us, and what organization and staffing do we need to accomplish that?
I can add a little bit to this. So it sounds like you're talking a little bit about the kind of how the organization itself might change to both integrate and monitor and then iterate upon AI. There's a few things that we kind of built out in our framework. So one of the big things is that we do want to have this be very much, you can almost say local based on the different teams. So to some extent that would be like team dependent, and it would be up to the director who forms the team themselves to add that as a competency in addition to the other competencies that they're doing. Now, that being said, there should be an organizational level side of things. So in terms of the strategy side and the accept phase, we talk about setting goals. That really does fall on you guys, the board and the executive officers, to build out that strategy and to communicate that. But also in terms of actually enforcing it, we would recommend having some people who, as you mentioned, on the training side, can train people on how it's used, and especially used within the film industry, but also having potentially people who are themselves responsible for making sure that it's used equitably and ethically, if that makes sense. In terms of on the ground level, though, that would have to be team dependent, simply because every single different film is made so differently and with such different people and such different perspectives. It would be a little bit impossible from a top-down perspective to just say every team should have an ethics officer, for example.
Thank you. Tim?
So I'm coming to you as someone whose brother is a screenwriter. And he was one of 3 persons on the negotiation team at WGA. So lots to do here. But I guess everything's about Minji, which is, did you say, did you talk about the legal implications of a script being prepared that benefited from a large language model that contained content that was not approved by the author to be added to this LLM? And what I'm talking about is people are using LLMs. And if you're using an LLM to help you write a script, how do you know that my brother's content is not in that LLM without his legal authority for it to be in there?
Or from a prior script he had written.
Yes, yes.
Oh, yeah, how are you ensuring there's no IP coming in
Right.
from me?
Did you address that?
So I sort of addressed that in the section about the ongoing litigation. So this is something that is still being worked on, because the issue of whether like using protected works as inputs into AI, as you mentioned, whether that constitutes like copyright infringement, it's still something that the courts are deciding on. And so there's no like clear decision on whether if a protected work is used in training AI, that would actually be a violation of copyright law.
So does your team suggest we should move forward with your solution before that question is answered by the courts, or should we wait?
I can jump in. Yeah, so I can jump in a little bit here. So 2 things that I think are really core to our strategy, and one of the biggest things for legal risk mitigation is simply the fact that like we want to have everything that goes into a script be monitored or reviewed by a human, and also probably also modified simply because of that IP thing before it even goes into the script. That's also part of the WGA contract itself. So that is one kind of internal mitigation. In terms of should we move forward with it, I would argue yes. The majority of the reason for that is simply because the faster we move along with AI, the faster we're able to see the benefits. And we also know our competitors are likely to do this as well. And if we end up being a little bit further behind, we may be in a position where we're not actually able to see a higher productivity relative to the competition, which may mean we've had slightly lower benefits. So to kind of condense that a little bit, in general speaking, yes, we did consider like that inputs of other people's works may be extrapolated by the other AI. We do think that one of the guidelines should be that it should not nothing from AI should directly be used as a part of the script. And as it relates to the actual, sorry, I'm trying to forget the last one, but
No, that's like what I've heard. BJ said it's easier to ask for forgiveness than to provide. Okay, that's all I needed to know. Okay,
And
go.
then the jury. Oh, and we are, I think Nina had something you should mention.
Quickly.
Yes, I quickly, we asked, kind of have it built into our phase 2 of our phase 1, which is about 6 months, is kind of laying out the groundwork for this. And then also in our phase 2 and phase 3 is being up to date with kind of the legal, ongoing legal landscape. So while we don't know the ongoing litigation, we're hoping in the next 1 to 2 years that has started being resolved. So we are going to be adaptable to the changes that are coming from the laws.
Okay, thank you. Now it's time for us to take off our board member hats, and we're gonna offer you some feedback on your presentation and on the Q&A. Let's start with Maria.
Yeah, okay, so first of all, I thought that you all were very, very good at presenting. You took a very, very, very challenging topic with a lot of, it's very, very, very multifaceted. And you did a good job covering all the different aspects of it. I think you worked very well together. You did good handoffs. There were times where your voices were a little bit low. When you are coming in front of a group of people, you know, you really want to project, and enunciate really carefully, because you don't want people questioning like, wait, what word did they just say? I think that's one thing. I think being careful about the ums and the you guys, right? You guys is very informal, not a written word. I would say that's something where you really, really have to practice. And in the future, you are going to be presenters of some kind. I think that's important to learn. Yeah, I think overall you did a good job. You tackled the legal and the financial and the ethical. I think part of the problem with this particular topic is that there's just so many different factors, like Tim brought up about, the copyright issues. Are you going to use your own internal LLM, or are you going to use public? And if it's going to be something more public, where the data coming in is more public, is there going to be bias in there? How do you determine there's no bias in that data? It's very complicated, but good job tackling a really tough topic.
Thank you, Tim.
Yeah, again, I think you did a great job in selecting the topic, and you did a very good job researching it. And he really is my brother. He's an interesting person. Let's see. So I liked very much that you started off with the problem. I love that you just were crystal clear. You instantly went into Bob Iger as a way to help us feel like you weren't attacking us, because you showed how the problem was also agreed, like Bob Iger agrees with you as to what the problem is, so that was great. And you did something other teams haven't done, and I liked it. You gave your solution at the beginning.
Yeah.
And then you went through the rest of the puppy, and then at the end, you said the solution again and everything, but it was a nice thing to do by laying out the solution, so that was deposited in my head as I heard all the other things you said, so that was pretty good. You're my 5th team today, and you're the 5th team that said you guys. You're not allowed to say you guys, but now that 100% of the teams have said you guys, I'm just gonna give in.
It's a light quest for me.
Jim asked the question, like, why are your ethical considerations ethical? And you all know the rules. You're not allowed to say, well, Aristotle said this. But you are allowed to say, when you said, like the screenwriter's jobs, you're allowed to say the word harm. So harm is a business approved word to describe why something's an ethical issue or not. Because the reality of AI is going to change the mix of benefits and harms. You can't say utilitarianism, but you can say benefits and harms. So that's a good thing, because then if you don't say kind of those euphemism words, then people won't think you're talking about ethics. They'll think you're talking only about business. So I'm almost done. Yeah, so Nancy got to this issue a little bit, which is one of the real challenges here is, VJ very smartly brought up the reality of the writing detection software, because Nancy asked a great question about enforcement. It's just an awkward reality that the future will involve scummy, quote unquote, screenwriters who putting my brother out of his job because they will abuse this. And the problem is, even though VJ's answer was correct, that it's Disney that will enforce, but it is not in Disney's financial interest to enforce. It is in Disney's financial interest to look the other way, let the fake content in, and for my brother to be laid off. So that is a reality that in the big picture needs to be a part of your.
Condolences for your brother.
Well, it's more about the quality of the Christmas gifts I want to keep. And yeah, so basically, and the last thing is, I understand where you're coming from on the financial, that we can increase efficiency by 20%. But I think your math was a little generous to suggest that the entire revenue of the film industry will go up by 20% simply because the screenwriting process is 20% more efficient, since the screenwriting process represents 10 to 15% of the overall things that go into making a film. Okay, thank you.
Carl? Carl, are you with us? Can you speak for a minute?
Oh, yes. I really appreciated the start. I appreciate the topic, first of all. It's an important topic, urgent to do. And you started out talking about what's the right thing for Disney to do. Perhaps you could have strengthened it a bit by talking about their three primary values, because ethics decisions basically are judgments, and they need to be based on the company's values. And Disney has three: entertain, inform, and inspire. Those three values of Disney say they've got to stay at the top of the AI industry. They just have to be who they want to be as a company. It's an ethics issue anytime somebody says something is not fair. The screenwriters were saying it's not fair. Other people in the company, other stakeholders are going to say things are not fair. And the only way that the Disney company is going to know that is those feedback channels. And that's why I asked about, how does a company create policy? It's got to create it from the bottom up. It's got to get stakeholders involved. There's going to be a need for quite a lot of discussion within the Disney stakeholder ranks. And that means the customers and the unions and all of that, to determine what they're seeing that they feel is not fair, so that the company can fix that. And those costs are going to increase, I would think, maybe not enormously, but significantly in the AI arena. So I thought you did a good job. Of course, I'm just listening. I can't see if you're smiling or frowning or gesturing or any of that stuff. I love the charts that you did. It helped me a lot to listen and see the charts and track along with what you were doing. Really good job. Thank you.
And one quick thing, it was noticeable that Nina and Minchi less speaking than the gentleman. So I had Nina 3.5 minutes, Minchi at 3.5, BJ at 10. I know it can't be perfect, but try to balance things when you can. Sorry, Jim.
That's okay. No, just one last comment. I think it's really tough to pick a topic that is so well known in some form in the country. And we all know that we missed our television shows so badly while the strike was going on, and we all formed opinions. I think that kudos to you for picking a topic that everybody has an opinion on, even though everybody doesn't even know what it was about. All they knew was that we missed our TV shows. So I really appreciate that you went ahead and did that, and I felt like I got some good education from what it is that you said. Do you have any questions for us?
I do actually. To the whole reiterating that I know you two said of the whole "you guys" verbiage. I think, and I don't know if I can speak for the other teams, but maybe for all of us, I think the one reason why we kept using that was it's hard for us in that role playing to imagine what that actual interaction will be like if we're talking directly as in your board members. So I think our nature just went into, it's not like we're trying to have a formal presentation referring to the Walt Disney Company at all times. We want to have that sort of conversation. But if you want us to sort of change that to still have formal language, but make that playing field level that we're all in the same room, we're just trying to help you guys, how
So
would ever.
you're saying
what
you're
would-
trying to make that connection with the audience,
Yes.
is what you're saying, okay.
But if we need it in
Yeah.
a formal way, well, is there anything?
Yeah, so-
The interesting reality of what you're saying
Yeah.
is, so the solution is you, not you guys, it's you. And here's the deal.
Correct.
We are not individuals. We are the board. We are an entity. We are an it, not a he and a her. We are an it. So if you think of it that way psychologically, it's easier for you to be comfortable. Just say you, meaning the company, Disney. You are the board from that company. Because when you think of you guys makes us feel like individual persons when we aren't. We are the board. We are an it.
I think.
People are lined, hurry up, people are lined up outside.
Oh,
I didn't know, sorry, yeah, Liam is looking at me with the stink eye.
Sorry.
And it's your son, you trained him to do that, so. Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.